we are going to start our plenary section. The name of this section is Maps of the Invisible, Memories, Narratives, and Cartography of Multiple Conflicts. We are going to start with Samuel Ayobami Akinrulli, also from Universidade Federal de Minas Gerais, and he is going to present Historic Cartography and GIS Geoprocessing as data analysis source for the economic of culture, the value of heritage before mining activities in the Quadrilátero Ferrífero-Aquífero region of Brazil. So you turn on your microphone and share your screen with us.
All right, thank you very much. Foremost, I must thank you for this opportunity of being able to aggregate values and sharing with all of this public our ideas, our researches, and how mapping or map as brought novelty into some other disciplinarities. I'm going to share my screen as fast as I can here. Yes, okay, there we go. As fast as we can. I'm just going to do my own part before other speakers come in. Historic cartography and GIS geoprocessing and as data analysis source for economic or the economics of culture. The value of heritage before mining activities in Quadrilátero Ferrífero-Aquífero region in Brazil. The Quadrilátero Ferrífero-Aquífero region is still, till date, one of the biggest mineral provinces around the world. Actually, here in the southeast Brazil or southeastern Brazil, it is the largest, which covers about 700,000 hectares. Its main limits cut through Serra do Coral to the north, Serra de Ouro Branco in the south, Serra Moeda in the west, and Serra do Caraça in the east. Attention is being paid to the use of the expression aquífero or Quadrilátero Ferrífero because as opposed to the elementary designation of Quadrilátero Ferrífero-Aquífero would have an arena of debates on the environmental agenda of the extractive model developed in the territory we're talking about. In addition to this geological characterization that highlights the mineral wealth, it is relevant to strengthen the repository of drainage or hydrography associated with two of the most important river basins in Minas Gerais. This semiotic question fully exposed the questioning by social movement on mining, development, and sustainability. It is questioned if Quadrilátero Ferrífero is the right name to be given to this region. Is it more of aquífero or ferrífero? And what about the heritage in this context? So this is what we are trying to cover through the use of map in this presentation. So as we can see from a very long time, the human occupancy in this region generates stratigraphy of cultural vestiges and heritage of various periodicity. And from the, we can trace this from the pre-contact to the pre-colonial to the colonial era, and then to the imperial period, to the Republic period, up to the contemporary time in Brazil. So as we can see this image here, Vila Rica is this region in Minas Gerais, that was the capital of Minas Gerais in the colonial era. And we can see that mining activities has always been present since the colonial era in this region. Even during the pre-colonial era, from the vestiges we see, there are some kind of adaptation of the kind in place of silic, for example, in this region would have quartzo, for example, in this region that the native before the colonial era. But what do we need from this? It's the fact, we need the fact that the occupancy along this periodicity generate vestiges and heritage, and later would have a new definition of this region through the interest of, or let me say, through the geological interests of this region. So would have researchers or map creators like that of Eschweg, a geologist, who was the first to detail a map of that region in 1818. And after that would have some other maps like of Minas Gerais. Even the name Minas Gerais was given through the abundance of mineral resources in this region. So this is another example of a map by Eschweg in 1821. And that led us, or later would have another era of mapping of this region, which is a continuity of the work of the geologist Eschweg later. Here would have this map, which was generated, or which was a result of a partnership between the Brazilian and American government. So we have a partnership between the sectors called DNPME in Brazil and USGS in the US, in order to create geological maps of these regions. So it is through that the name sourced Quadrilátero Ferrífero came about through this study, this geological study. So as such, would have this region remapped based on the richness of geological materials or mineral abundance it has than some other ones. Aquifero comes in as a counterpart, as one of the minerals, but would see which one is more valuable than the other. And it is through this would have the reality of the society living in this region being mapped and marked. We can have a look at this region here, as we can see here through the use of GIS. We have the modern trace of the same region through this temporality, and this goes through many cities or many municipalities of Minas Gerais. And for our example, in order to see the scale of heritage when we say heritage, then would have to have a better scale to be able to visualize what we have as vestiges of the occupancy through this periodicity. So we have a new part, or we take a sample out of this totality, being the municipality of, or biggest district of Orupeto, being Miguel Bonnier, as we have here. The name is Miguel Bonnier, as we have in the middle, the red part. Before that, would like to understand how there has been a change in the coverage of the land or the earth in this region along this periodicity. So we in order to understand this, we have to use a very consistent image. So here we have an image of Landsat, which is of two different periodicity. 1988, we have the first image here of 1988 and the second image of 2017, in order to see the land use and the changes we can see during the period. As we can see here on the third image here, the red part actually shows the changed part, while the blue part remain consistent during this period of time. So as such, we can see if identifying Quadrilátero Ferrífero as Quadrilátero Ferrífero without can bring about a drastic or not. So what we see here is that there has been some changes in the almost all the region during this period of time. Well, our sample, as I said, Miguel Bonnier, can be seen in this other map that is there that we created recently. And we also use a base that is very important in the Brazilian society, which is DNPM, which has to do with the process of mining. For there to be a mining activity, there must be a permission, and in that solicitation for permission of exploration of that region, you have to demarcate, you have to declare the part you are interested in exploring. And as we can see, this is Ouro Preto as a whole, the municipality of Ouro Preto, and this is Miguel Bonnier here. And we can see that it is covered with lot of processes, mining processes, that when we take a look at the biggest district of the municipality of Ouro Preto, would realize that we only have about 3% of the whole territory without mining interest. This is the reality here, and we try to understand how this can impact cultural heritage in this region that belongs to different period of this civilization or occupancy of Minas Gerais. So from our sample, like I said, we have only the green part here. It's very difficult to even see here. Only the green part is left. The whole of the rest is already with a kind of solicitation for exploration, at least if it's not in progress already. So in order to get that part, we worked on separating the using GIS. We've been using to produce all these layers in order to compare and isolate the rest, or the remaining part that we have there. So at a very better way, in a very better way of seeing it, we can see that here in this region, the blue part we have here are hydrography. These are reflections of the hydrography we have in this region, despite the fact that mining, or the mineral resources available in this region is being pinpointed as the main economic value here, would also have water in abundance here. And this is very, very important, that if this were cancelled, if this were explored and in this manner, just thinking about the mineral resources that
2 minutes,
possible
please.
of being mined. Yes, 2 minutes. Okay, let's go. Yeah, that led us to the fact that there is a need to see this in a very better scale. So we'll use these in combination with aerial maps. We had some kind of prospection through this in locus, and that led us to this. All the points we have here are heritage references, points of references, where we have vestiges, where we have evidence of occupation and important heritage that are supposed to be considered, registered, and protected all through this region. As we can see, these two, we generated some other images to see how much of these we have. At a better scale, we can see here clearly that if we see, these are mining activities happening in Miguel Bonilla, for example. In between lot of references, in between that are really important to the historicity of the society we live in today. And these all have economic values, as it is already proven in some other studies that I'm not able to bring for us today. I'll stop here today, and I say thank you very much. A lot of information to bring, but I'll have to limit this to the time we have here. Thank you very much for your audience.
So thank you, Samuel. We are going to the next speaker is Jorge Eremites de Oliveira, Universidade Federal de Pelotas, and he's going to speak Little Water for Many Indians, Ethnoarchaeology of Guató Indigenous Land and its surroundings in the Pantanal region, Corumbá, Mato Grosso do Sul, Brazil.
Hello, my name is Jorge Eremites de Oliveira. I'm an archaeologist, historian, and anthropologist, and I am presenting this work entitled Little Water for Many Indians, Ethnoarchaeology of the Guató Indigenous Land and adjacent areas in the Pantanal regions in the municipality of Corumbá, the state of Mato Grosso do Sul, Brazil. Foremost, I'd like to explain who the Guatós are. Guató is the name of the indigenous people who inhabit the Pantanal region. These people are historically known as canoeing Indians, and so are they called and widely known in the state of Mato Grosso and Mato Grosso do Sul. They are associated with the construction and use of monticular structures called aterros in Brazilian archaeology, mounds in English, and their radiocarbon date as early as 8,400 years before present. It is a people whose native language is affiliated to the linguistic family of the same name, Guató, and the macro-geolinguistic trunk. The territory historically occupied by the Guató is practically the entire floodplain of the Pantanal, which is an area of 150,000 square meters, located in the interior of the high coast of the hydrographic basin of the Paraguay River. More specifically, in the case of the River Paraguay, Cuiabá, São Lourenço, Caracará, Alegre, Taquari, Miranda, and others, as well as the Uberaba, Gaiva, Manjoré, Cáceres, and other lagoons. These areas were occupied especially by the Guatós, where they established their settlements since about 3,000 years ago. So, if in the past they had a territory within an area of 150,000 square kilometers, today they own two pieces of this huge territory that sum up to the total of 30,000 hectares. How did we do the research, and what are the objectives of the research? Well, this work presents the result of the ethnoarchaeological studies done in the indigenous territory of the Guató Bay, located in the municipality of Corumbá in Mato Grosso do Sul, on the border with the state of Mato Grosso and the municipalities of Cáceres and Poconé, and also the border of Brazil with Bolivia. The Guatós, as I had already explained, from the linguistic affiliation to the macro-J trunk, in the 1970s, they initiated an ethnic movement of identification, delimitation, and demarcation of indigenous lands in Brazil. First, in Mato Grosso do Sul from the 1970s onward, and more recently from the 2000 in Mato Grosso. They build landfills, which are mounds of earth structures, and they live with a lot of spatial mobility. And in these landfills, they practice agroforestry management. They make their crops, and in the territory, they also hunt, fish, and engage in various types of harvests. The maps we produced during this period will be shown in the following slides, and the text as shown here explains these subjects better. Regarding how the ethnoarchaeological research was done, these works began in the early 1990s. They involve ethnoarchaeological, ethnological, and ethnohistorical research. But there was a halt in 2002, and we have now resumed since 2012, and this survey is in progress till date. We have carried out some historical and bibliographical survey from multiple sources on the Guatós through over almost 5 centuries. The first time they were nominally cited was in a document dated 1543. We also did interviews and interlocutions with dozens of indigenous families in the municipalities of Corumbá, Ladário, Barão de Melgaço, Cuiabá, Poconé, and several others like Cáceres, all in the Pantanal region. In addition to these interviews, it was possible to understand the life history of each family, the history of the indigenous people, where it was possible to understand their own socio-cultural system. We have also surveyed many archaeological sites and indigenous settlements still in use at the present time. All this work was recorded with GPS, so all the sites were georeferenced, and we produce maps based on GIS, Geographic Information System. And part of this research was presented in 2018 to the Federal Court in Cuiabá, in the state of Mato Grosso, as a technical scientific study for the recognition of the Guató Bay as indigenous land. And all this has been thought of within a perspective of contributing to the knowledge of the Guató ethno-history and the work towards a long-time indigenous history in spatial and temporary terms. Here we have a map of the Pantanal region. This is the first map that takes part of the Bolivia, Paraguay and part of Brazil. Here we have the study area, Guató Indigenous Land, where the research I'm presenting now has been done. Here we have the location of the two indigenous land that currently exist. So you can see that this whole area is a single territory or part of the Guató's territory. And here's a demarcated indigenous land that I earlier mentioned, and here is another demarcated indigenous land, Guató Bay, where I did the technical scientific study for its recognition as indigenous land. This entire area here is included within Guató territory. Here, more specifically, we have the Guató's indigenous land in the municipality of Corumbá in Mato Grosso do Sul. So that's the total area, and this is the demarcation here. So, when this demarcation study was done in the 1970s and 1980s, they worked basically with the idea of indigenous land and left out the most vital part, which was the water part. Here, we have all the houses where people live, cemeteries, school, other areas, and here's some of the water that was left out. So, for a people who are canoeists, staying out of water has become a very serious problem. Here, we have images of the Guató in the 19th century. These here were registered by Hercule Flocons, a Frenchman, and these others here are photographs of 1901, registered by a German named Max Schmidt. Here are recent images of the Guató. That's the same person at 14 and here at 85, Dona Negrinha, pictures of Max Schmidt. Pictures of me with them during my field work, with my interlocutors and relatives, and finally here, images from the 20th and 21st centuries. And here we have the area of the Guató Indigenous Land. That's the whole area of land, and one can tell the water is let out. So here we have the several islands in this region. All of them have settlement sites. They roam these areas all year round. They are places where they sometimes stay for a day or two, and that's the area that was left out.
Bom, os problemas e as soluções. Bom, como boa parte do território aquático ficou de fora da demarcação física da terra indígena Guató, cuja população atual está em torno de 200 pessoas, eles sofrem hoje em dia um problema muito sério com a entrada de turistas, pescadores, empresas e mesmo com agências do próprio governo, órgãos do governo no seu
Besides,
território.
there are a number of conflicts with regards to the use of the natural resources that exist in these areas, like fish, for example, animals to hunt, wood, and so on.
Animais para caçar,
The solution for this, according to the Brazilian legislation, is to review the boundaries of the Guató Indigenous Land so that it can be expanded.
Limite da terra indígena Guató, para que ela possa ser ampliada. Mas essa
But this situation will only be possible when the Brazilian democracy is re-established. So, the community today is expecting a review of the boundaries. People are socially isolated by the COVID-19 pandemic, and they hope that once Brazilian democracy is re-established, they will file a request for a review of the boundaries of the Guató Indigenous Territory with the Brazilian authorities. Well, that was the speech. I'm so sorry not to have presented the communication in English, but I hope we have been able to establish a mutual understanding. Thanks a lot.
So thank you, Samuel, for putting the video, displaying the video, and thank you, George, for the presentation. Now I think we are going to see another video by Plínio Temba da Costa, also from the University Federal of Minas Gerais. And his presentation is the study of geological slip risk in Vila Cafezal, Belo Horizonte, Minas Gerais, using cartography and innovative digital technologies. For whom is not aware, Vila Cafezal had a very huge disaster and killed a lot of people many years ago. And that's about it was a tragedy like we saw these past years about mining, but it was a site of a construction. So Samuel, you have to share your screen again and display the video, please.
Good morning. First of all, I'm glad to be a part of this beautiful event. I am Plínio Temba from the Federal University of Minas Gerais, Brazil, and I am presenting my work, the study of geological landslide risk in Brazilian islands, Minas Gerais, Brazil.
This research reveals a method that identifies the critical slope on the soil stabilization aspect. embedded in the irregular settlement at the risk of geological slippage and adoption of laser profiling, which has largely innovated the advancement obtained by other technologies so that the embedded sensors allowed the generation of an expressive model of points on physical surface in order to model far more efficiently than the other technologies either to practiced. The combination with dedicated apps provided the surface modeling with a vertical accuracy of approximately 15 centimeters. Brazil, officially the Federal Republic of Brazil, has 27 states. It is the largest country in South America, the fifth largest country in the world, both by geographical area as much as population, with over 200 million inhabitants. It is the only Portuguese-speaking country in the Americas and the largest Portuguese-speaking country in the world. Brazil is also home to a diversity of wildlife, natural environment, extensive natural resources, and a variety of protected habitats. The Brazilian economy is the seventh economy of the world in nominal GDP and the eighth highest in purchasing power parity. But despite the economic success, it is still a country with a high rate of inequality. This is responsible for 25% of the population of big cities living in irregular settlements and cause enormous difficulty in meeting the needs of this population. In the picture, the Cafezal settlement in Belo Horizonte appears. About 50,000 people living therein. The irregular settlement is a collection of dwellings and precarious housing system that usually doesn't have quality. In the literature, it is called shantytown slums, and in Brazil it is known as favela, agglomerate, and complexes too. So, in the city of Belo Horizonte, small settlements are known as vilas. And when there is a set of villas, it's known as agglomerates. One of its features is that the formal city, in the city hall and sub-administration with local power, there is no dedication, concerns about meeting the demands for housing and other necessary amenities of this population. So they organize themselves into their own institutions, run by the residents themselves, or through some activities of religious nature, which are called charities, who support favelas dwellers to produce better quality houses, providing lands, small loans, cheap building materials, and basic services. The favela is defined basically by three aspects. First, for a long time, there weren't enough investments made by the formal organs in order to regularize the land issue, that is, the ownership of the properties. There are no financing services that could favor the acquisition of these properties. And there's also a strong spatial stigmatization inferred especially by residents of other areas of the
caracteriza
city.
predominantemente pela alta
The second
construção,
aspect is
onde
characterized
não são
predominantly
orientadas
by
pelos parâmetros
self-made
legais
construction
estabelecidos
that are
pelo
not
governo
oriented by the
local.
legal parameters set
E o
by
terceiro
the
aspecto,
local government.
existe uma
And the
insegurança
third
de
aspect is
dificuldade
the
de acesso
existence of
às instalações da
insecurity and or
comunidade,
difficulty of
tais
access
como
to
jardins de
community
infância, centros
facilities
comunitários, centros
such
de
as school,
saúde, parques,
kindergarten,
instalações
community
esportivas, entre
centers,
outros.
health centers, park and sport facilities, among others. The
Escorregamento
geological
geológico,
landslide, the
deslizamento
geological
geológico. O termo
slippage.
risco,
The term risk
como
as an
indicador da
indicator to the
probabilidade de ocorrência
occurrence
de algum
probability of
dano a
some
uma
damage
população,
to a
bens ou
population,
materiais,
people or
é
material
uma
goods.
condição potencial para
A
um
potential
acidente.
condition for geological
O risco
accident and
geológico
risk is
tem
basically
basicamente
of
duas
two
divisões:
divisions:
terremotos, erupções
earthquake,
vulcânicas
volcanic eruption, etc.,
ligadas aos processos
connected to the
endógenos,
endogenous
enquanto a
processes,
manifestação
while
de
the
patologias
manifestations
como
of pathologies
deslizamento,
with landslides,
quedas,
falls, fluid
fluxos
mass flow,
de massa,
etc.,
fluidos,
are
são
due
devidos
to
aos chamados
exogenous
processos
processes.
exógenos.
In
Em
short,
resumo, o
geological
risco
risk
geológico pode
can be
ser
understood as
entendido como
any
qualquer
process,
processo,
situation, or
situação,
event
evento
in
do
the
ambiente
geological
geológico de
environment
origem
of
natural,
natural origin
induzida ou
or
vista,
risk
que pode
induced,
gerar danos
which can
econômicos
generate
ou
economic or social
sociais
damages to the
às
community,
comunidades e
and
cujas
whose focused
jurisdições,
prevention or
prevenção,
correction is
correção
guaranteed if geological criteria
se
are
empregar
used.
critérios geológicos. O que se verifica
What
nessas
happens
regiões
in these
de
regions of
ocupações e
occupancy
irregularidades,
and irregularities
ações
is
da
that there are
população
actions of
e
the
dos
populations
moradores,
and the
chamadas
residents,
ações
called
antropizadas, que
anthropized actions,
interferem na
that
modelagem
interfere with
natural
the
do terreno.
natural shaping
Essas
of the terrain.
interferências, a
These
depender da
interference, depending
intensidade,
on the intensity,
são
are
elementos
elements
que
that
contribuem
contribute
de
fully to the
forma
existence of
cabal na
slides
existência de
when heavy
deslizamentos
rains
quando a
occur.
ocorrência de chuvas de grande intensidade. É isso que a gente vai perceber.
That's what we'll observe here. Currently,
Atualmente,
the risk
a previsão
situations
do
forecast
alcance
scope in Belo
das
Horizonte
situações
is
de
carried out
risco em Belo
qualitatively on
Horizonte
the basis of
é
observation
realizada
of numerous
qualitativamente com
cases
base na
of
observação do
recorded
número de
faults
casos
or erosive
de
processes
queda de
and the
véu de
vast
processos
experience of
erosivos
professionals working in this area.
registrados e na vasta experiência de profissionais que atuam nessa área. Na literatura,
In the
foram
literature,
criados critérios
criteria were
relacionados às
created
possibilidades de
related to the
atingir o risco. Por
possibilities of
exemplo,
running the
a
risk.
relação entre
For example, the relationship between the base of the slope
a
and the
base da
building.
encosta à edificação. Então,
So,
existe uma
there's a
relação
relationship
entre a
between the height of
altura
the
da
slope,
encosta, a
downstream
jusante
or
ou
upstream,
a montante
and the distance that the
e a
building has
distância
in
que a
relation to the
edificação
two
tem em
extremes.
relação a esses dois extremos. E
And the
a
classification
classificação
is
é
done
feita
when the
quando
ratio
a
is 1 to
relação
1.
é de 1
It is
para 1,
considered
é
low risk.
considerado baixo
When it is
risco.
2 to 1,
Quando
it
é de
is
2
an
para
average
1,
risk
é uma
rate,
taxa média.
while
E de 3 para
3
1
to
é um
1
grupo de
is
alto
high
risco.
risk of landslide.
Aqui está o modelo
Here's a
matemático em
mathematical
relação
model
ao
in
local de
relation to the
deslizamento.
slide.
As informações em
Information
relação
regarding the
ao
landslide
fenômeno de
phenomenon
deslizamento que
caused in
causa
the
na
structure
estrutura da
of physical
superfície
surveys,
física.
and
E
here the
aqui o
criterion that
critério que
was
foi
adopted
adotado
with
como
the indicative
indicativo
at greater or
de
lesser risk
maior ou
that the
menor risco
building may
que uma
suffer as
edificação
a
pode
result
sofrer
of
em função das
unproposed
ações
actions.
antropizadas. Bom, a
Thus,
pesquisa,
this research,
como foi
as it's
colocado,
exhibited,
ela utiliza
uses the most advanced
tecnologias
technologies currently
as mais
available at the
avançadas ou
market in the
disponibilizadas
state of
hoje
art.
no mercado, né, no estado da arte. Dentre as quais
Among
a
them
questão do
is the
perfilamento
use of laser
laser e
profiling
da
and
fotogrammetria.
photogrammetry.
O perfilamento laser nada mais
Laser
é do que
profiling is nothing
sensor
more than an
embarcado numa
onboard sensor
aeronave
in the
que
aircraft,
permite, em
which allows the
função
function
de
of a cannon
canhão
that
que gera
generates
pulsos
pulses
de
of light
luz,
to estimate the distance and positions that these points occur on the physical surface, bringing about the mapping or a clarity in relation to the shape of the physical surface with many more acquired details than photogrammetry had achieved so far. The photogrammetry on its own is a technology that uses the collation of a collection of aerial images, which allows one to make interpretations and identifications of elements and objects on the surface. However, the use of photogrammetry's limitation is that in some regions there occurs the so-called occultation claim due to the light intensity that reaches these buildings and generates many shading areas, which laser profiling can solve. The area of study is the so-called aglomerado da Serra. Amongst them is the Cafezal settlement, Vila Cafezal, corresponding to a 143,100 square mile polygon. Approximately 720 soccer fields inserted in the so-called aglomerado da Serra. It is a settlement that comprises a continuous extension of 5 favelas comprising Vila Cafezal, Vila Nossa Senhora de Fátima, Vila Massola, Vila Nossa Senhora da Conceição, and Vila Nossa Senhora Aparecida, in a transition region between two municipality regions, the East and the South Central Regional. The method. Initially, the collection of digital scenes relevant to the study area was selected. A polygon from the area critical to landslide risk was designed sequentially. From the aerial mosaic of Aglomerado da Serra, the limits of the blocks, contours, and complexity of the buildings were shown in ArcGIS application, allowing the generation of cartographic base of the settlements and consequently obtaining the spatial parameters. Parallelly, a routine in MATLAB application platform compares the geographical location of the housing with the modeled physical surface created in Global Mapper app from the laser profile and other important geological parameters. After processing in MATLAB, a classification of the building has been established, and the proportion between horizontal distance from the house to the top or bottom to the landfill, and the vertical distance from the landfill defines an index called RZ. Based on this index, we derived three classes, namely moderate, medium, and serious risk, as they appear on the table. We hereby present the applications and procedures that were used during the process. Also shown in the result obtained from the laser profiling modeling. Here is an image of intensity, and then those colored parts were generated, indicating vertical variations, and in the end we have the results. Herein, the result is the mapping of the regions indicating risks of landslides in the Cafezal settlement, showing that it faces problems of a similar nature to erosive processes, which is latent in other locations. This research reveals that not only the erosive process, but the combination of other factors is responsible for the dynamics imposed by nature that shapes the physical surface. On the other hand, bad weather, such as heavy rainfalls or extreme droughts associated with the anthropized action, simply reduces nature's time of reaction to the dynamics of gravitational character. Although soil and rock examination is crucial, the research was dedicated to the indicator that reveals vulnerability from the model or to the risk of landslides. Also, it focuses more on Cafezal settlement in the capital of Minas Gerais as predominant to determine the reflection on the houses of the landslides indicator on the model. That is, indicator of buildings at risk. The unique character of this research is the use of digital terrain model (DTM) and the digital photogrammetry technology used. Thanks a lot for your attention. Best wishes.
So thank you, Samuel, and thank you, Plínio, for the presentation. Now I'm passing for Luana Carla Martins Campos Akinrulli, also from Universidade Federal de Minas Gerais, and she is speaking the Fazenda dos Caldeirões, the Fábrica Patriótica and the Inconfidência Mineira, the historic cartography and geoprocessing of the steel-making territory in Brazil. I think she is going to present lively, yes? No, also a video.
Hello, I'm Luana Campos Akinrulli, currently in a postdoctoral residence at the Federal University of Minas Gerais, and I'm the project and research coordinator at the Institute for Social Innovation and Cultural Diversity. I will approach this by presenting some aspects of iron mining and steel-making in Brazil, which will take us to the long-lasting contest starting from the 18th century and moving towards the 21st century. This is to discuss the methodological possibilities based on experience of social cartography, presenting some results that indicate the relevance of interdisciplinary dialogues and the visibility of social groups located on the margin or in marginalized locations. During the colonial and imperial period in Brazil, iron exploration was associated with other resources, many times more economically valued in the market, such as gold and diamond mining. The availability of iron, to a large extent, was associated with these mineral deposits in Brazilian territory. There was a growing need for the use of iron instruments, whether in the process of sugarcane or cassava processing, as in mills and pots, or the processes of gold and diamond mining, as well as for armaments, instruments for slave torturing, various machinery for factories, for railways, etc. Came up against a profitable processing of iron ore through the old crucibles, which were small foundries whose installation basically demanded the proximity of forests to produce coal, deposit of iron ore, and abundant water for hydraulic power. Thus, it's important to indicate the need for a multi-component analysis of the mining archaeological sites, where there are also of various uses, improvements that associate mining and food production, in addition to the network of roads promoted by its foundation. One of these archaeological sites, called Fazenda dos Caldeirões, was located in a place of border between the first three districts of Minas Gerais, Brazil. It was installed near a vast and still little known area called Rodeadouro, or Rodeio do Itatiaia, which between the end of the 17th and the beginning of the 18th century began to receive voluminous population density because of the gold discoveries in the region of Minas Gerais. Fazenda dos Caldeirões was located in a place where roads and junction that communicated the farm and mining areas to the downtown of nearby villages such as Ouro Preto, called Vila Rica, Ouro Branco, and Congonhas do Campo covered. Its strategic position allowed not only access to downtown of the main mining villages of the 18th century, but also a certain discretion, which favored the Fazenda dos Caldeirões together with the inn in Capão do Lana, in order to serve as a place where, from the intellectual point of view, the Inconfidência Mineira movement of the elites of Minas Gerais at the end of the 18th century was structured. The Fazenda dos Caldeirões, in this sense, refers not only to the beginning of the colonial occupation of Minas Gerais and a prominent moment of gold extraction in the colony, which would be a reason to justify its relevance. This property is one of the most important national episodes in Inconfidência Mineira, and to the plans of two of the most powerful families at the time, contemplating individuals directly involved with the conspiration and the colonial plutocracy, the Álvares Maciel and Freires Andrade family. The Inconfidência Mineira that took place in the year 1789 ended up in death, punishment, and degradation of most of these involved, largely identified with the sectors of colonial elite. At Fazenda dos Caldeirões, the installation of an iron factory was planned, which gave relevance to the fact that industrialization could be Brazil's exit towards attaining the end of colonization and the constitution of its freedom. Part of this idea, inspired by the Industrial Revolution in England, was closely experienced by the Inconfidente Álvares Maciel after returning from his studies in Europe. His mineralogy, Vou ter que gravar de novo isso, tá? Tá ruim, Anjo? Você tá fazendo uma careta tão feia.
Não, é porque você concentrou aqui.
Fight with the sections of the colonial elite. At Fazenda dos Caldeirões, the installation of the iron factory was planned, which gave relevance to the fact that industrialization could be Brazil's exit towards production on an industrial scale took place for the first time in Brazil, and there was also the first National Material Heritage Protection by IFAM, the Institute of National Historical and Artistic Heritage, a federal agency founded in 1937, conservation of national in 1939 area of Vale SA, in one of its largest mining complexes in Brazil. The site is primarily visited not in situ, but through an online virtual 360 tour implemented a few years ago. This reality raises an important question not only about the access and preservation of national cultural heritage, but also about the dimensioning of the social and environmental impacts existing in mining areas. This area under study is located in Miguel Burnier, access of Fazenda dos Caldeirões, handwriting, documentation, and historical cartography, associated with ethnography research that generated data not only of social environment conflicts, with their silences and invisibilities, but also of the places of memory and reference of community itself. Through the geoprocessing of geographical information raised through social cartography procedures, quite relevant data was consolidated and archaeological sites were identified, including the archaeological complexes of Fazenda dos Caldeirões, a place described by the community as being an ancient thing where the slaves were placed at the base where a lot of gold was taken, and formed by parts of colonial mines, gold and iron, churches, cemeteries, senzala, and food production area. They are currently barricaded territories against collective access and use, since they are private properties of mining companies. This cultural heritage is an obstacle to the economic development model currently managed in mining region. However, the empowerment of communities over their territoriality and the handing of social mapping procedure in fundamental reflection how conflicts over cultural heritage can also be used as a tool to protect the communities themselves from discussions about belonging, local identity, and their fundamental rights. Well, that's it. Thank you very much for your attention and see you soon.
Thank you very much, Luana. And now I'm going to pass for the last presenter. Carlos Magno Guimarães is a professor of Universidade Federal de Minas Gerais, and he will present in Confidência Mineira the cartography of a historical movement on a mocho. Thank you. You have to turn on your sound. Carlos, you have to turn on your sound on the upper right of your screen.
We are presenting this one too. Okay, we'll do the translation.
The video also. Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you.
I think there was an error in the other video, but that doesn't take away the main information.
So it will be
all right, I'll do that right away.
A Inconfidência Mineira, cartografia de movimento histórico. Meu nome é Carlos Magno Guimarães.
My name is Carlos Magno Guimarães, and I have a stake in this ongoing work.
Tem início agora.
Inconfidência Mineira was a movement articulated by a group of the colonial elite in Minas Gerais, Brazil, at the end of the 18th century. The goals of this movement, though not unanimously accepted by all members, were the idea of independence of the colony, the abolition of slavery, economic development of the region, among others. The group that articulated the movement was made up of members of the colonial elite. And these participants and elites were of the most important social categories, such as farmers, miners, priests, military officers, the colonial state bureaucrats, and some were even recognized in the condition of intellectual elites, being writers, poets, etc.
Sendo escritores, poetas, etc. Embora
Although the movement was articulated for a few years, the plot did not attain its action due to the fact that it was denounced by some of its members.
A
The
repressão
unleashed
que foi
repression
desencadeada
culminated
culminou
in
na
the
prisão,
imprisonment,
processo,
prosecution,
condenação e
conviction,
exílio
and
de
exile
alguns
of
dos
some of the key
principais
members.
integrantes. Deles,
One of
Tiradentes,
them,
foi
Tiradentes,
condenado
was
e
convicted
executado
and executed on
na
the condition
condição
that
de
he
que
would
teria
have been
sido
the leader of the movement.
O trabalho de pesquisa
The
que
research
estamos
work that
desenvolvendo
we are developing
contempla uma
includes an
perspectiva
interdisciplinary
interdisciplinar
perspective
com
with
destaque para a
archaeology and
arqueologia e a
cartography in
cartografia
particular
no sentido
to allow
de
greater
permitir uma
understanding
maior compreensão
of how
de como
this
se
movement
articulou o
was
movimento
articulated
na
in
sua
its speciality
espacialidade
and
e
dynamics.
dinâmica. Trata-se
It involves the identification of archaeological sites or spaces still used today,
o que vai
which
permitir
will
a
allow
elaboração
the
de uma
elaboration of
cartografia
a
como
cartography
instrumento
as a tool for understanding the dynamics
da
of the rebellion,
dinâmica da
as well
rebelião,
as the rebel movement
incluindo o
in the territory where the movement
dos
was
rebeldes
articulated.
no território em que o movimento foi articulado. Aqui vocês têm algumas imagens
Here you have some
espaços
images of
conectados
spaces connected
ao
to the
movimento
movement
e nos
in which
quais
some of the rebellious
alguns
processes were developed.
processos da rebelião acabaram sendo desenvolvidos. Nesse caso, é vestígio de um
In this case, this is a vestige
no
of a
momento
place
final do movimento,
where, by the end of the movement, we faced with the unleashed repression. Some members of the movement had already passed through here as prisoners going into exile.
Our research in development is based on interdisciplinarity. This is because it deals with a historical theme, the Inconfidência Mineira, which demands vast and profound historical research on a nationwide scope, following the example of sources such as Autos da Devassa, a set of manuscripts arising from the lawsuit filed by the Portuguese crown against the rebels, and totaling 11 volumes and 5,500 pages. The large number of participants involved in the Inconfidência Mineira also increases the complexity of historical analysis as a nominal search in the documentation of the 18th and 19th centuries unfolds. We don't need to list the lengthy treatment that was faced during paleography identification and reading. At the same time, a geography database manages the processed information of manuscripts, which are aggregated and contrasted with other historical sources of greater relevance. This is the case of historical cartography composed by maps of various scales, plans, and even sketches. The dispersion of the data related to Inconfidência Mineira, although not restricted to the current state of Minas Gerais, has this location as a focal area, which contemplates the area of about 580,000 square kilometers. On the other hand, the location information of the archaeological sites already identified by the team of the UFMG Historical Archaeology Laboratory over its 25 years of operation is added. Some examples of these sites were previously exposed by Professor Carlos Magno, indicating the need for a holistic understanding. The crossing of several material sources, whether documentary or archaeological remains, was observed, and also involves the systematic readings of the Inconfidência Mineira in a dialogue between the local and the regional, between the colony and metropolis, between life stories and the social memory of the event, in order to give visibility to places, the material and symbolic struggles, people and events sometimes invisible in this story. The system also exposed the diversity of actors involved, the networks of traceability traced, the flows of communication in colonial times, the quotation in their reciprocity. The production of thematic maps from the data being treated is on the origin of expectation, contemplating multiple uses that will broaden the interpretative perspectives of the movement, in order to emerge historiography reviews of a movement that represents, on the part of more classical historiography, the birth of a nation identity. The research will also promote the identification of new archaeological sites in order to expand not only the possibility of knowledge of the rebels in the context of Inconfidência Mineira, but also to allow the possibility of preservation of the archaeological heritage left behind.
So, talking about Inconfidência Mineira has a lot to do with the kind of approach this issue permits. In the case of Laboratório de Arqueologia Histórica of UFMG, we were able to work together and use this multidisciplinary approach that permits the use of analyses or spatial analyses to this object of study. And as such, today I'm bringing to you one aspect of the research, which is the use of historic maps to understanding the region of study. Here, in our case, I'm bringing the sample of Fazenda dos Caldeirões. In this Fazenda dos Caldeirões, I believe it's been earlier elucidated how it worked and of what importance it is to the nation and to the memory of, the social memory. And in this case, as we can see on this map we have here, Fazenda dos Caldeirões appears in a map that is of that region, though, which belongs to Fazenda dos Chiqueiro do Alemão. This map actually is a part of collection of maps and documents of the Usina Whig, which belonged to Carlos Whig, one of the most successful iron miner in the history of iron mining industry or industrialization of the economic activity in Brazil. So this, as we can see here, we are privileged to have access to this because this is a very rare map and one of its kinds, where we'd have the material being a very different material and very fragile, and it is vegetal. So the way we manipulate this map would be very different, and we were very cautious of not destroying it the more as we use it, or damaging it the more as we use it. So with all care, we worked on this digitally. Foremost, how can we treat a map that we cannot scan, because the material cannot permit or would not permit the scanning, the whole scanning of it on just one single machine, because it's a very, very big map. So what we did in this case was photographing parts of these tiles together. We did a kind of mosaic of these tiles in order to have one whole map and later we treated that digitally. Okay, as I'm going to show you here, here we have tiles we created of this map. We photographed every part of it because it's very important we have details of the information on the map. So if we have this as just one photograph, I believe the distance would not permit the best resolution to see the tiny part of it. So we had smaller parts. So we later joined this together to form a very good map as we have here. So it is from this that we could extract information, and later we georeferenced this map using these references we have here, like the topology, like the references, the social references of these people or the locals. Like we have the streams, we have the bridges. So we used all this in order to place this map as an overlay to a real GIS work currently. And we must say that is noteworthy. We bring this other map to dialogue with the other one in order to make more sense of it. This is the photograph of a microfilm, and this actually has a lot of in understanding and analyzing the map. So the results, as we can see here, we place this on a aerial map, on an area map of the GIS, as we can see here. We tried some with some auto photo too, so we can see how real these references could match or could match up with the references that are still in these places. So what's the essence of using all this? After georeferencing these and fitting them to these places we can use other information, other tiny information to discover where we would find vestiges at a very small scale. So like here, for example, we can focus on where these places are today, covered all in the bush. We can find them, we can find the XY references and trace them down to this place. And most of them would match with a little or very minor differences in accuracy. So as you can see here, we have the image, the IRA image to see the stream on the old map, the old roads, the paths, and so on and so forth, the churches, and that led us to the references of the vestiges of Fazenda dos Caldeirões. As you can see here, every point here is a point of some cultural references would find there. So I'm going to stop here today. Thank you very much. If we have some other doubts, I believe we can clarify them during the event. Thank you very much for having us, and God bless.
Thank you all the
Thank you very much for your attention. Best regards.
Eu gostaria de agradecer.
I'd like to thank you all for the given chance to participate in this event.
You have to turn off the video.
This program is always very interesting and very productive.
Possibilidade desse.
You have to turn off, yes, and get out of the screen. So I have only one question, and due to the time, I think we will stay on this question. So the question is for Jorge, And Denise is the one who is asking. She says, in spite we are not in a democracy, look, your presentation shows some possibility in a short period of a participative cartography for the review of the demarcation of the region. I read about the methodology of ethnocartography that some cartographers are working today in Brazil, but I don't know if it's having success or suffering some official pressure against. So if you could come, and Samuel, you have to get out of your screen so people could see George when he answered. Oh, no, it's okay, it's okay. George, you have to turn on, yes, your sound.
Se puede responder en español, ¿verdad?
Sí.
Sí. Bueno, la metodología es una metodología muy parecida, semejante con cartografía social, pero es una metodología más de etnoarqueología, porque estamos observando los asentamientos antiguos y los recientes del tiempo presente, donde la gente vivía, donde la gente vive, sus casas, todo. Y por ahora nosotros quizá en 2021 con el cambio del gobierno se puede adentrar en la justicia con un pedido de revisión de los límites de la tierra indígena. Por ahora más difícil. Mas fora Bolsonaro.
Okay, thank you. So we are finishing for today and see you all tomorrow. I think Jordana wants to speak something.
Thank you, Junia. Actually, Denise is going to share our closing comments with you today. And I agree, we would love to see you all tomorrow morning.
Okay, we had a wonderful day. Fast. I have the impression that it was too fast. Thank you everyone for coming. Thank you a lot for our wonderful team of secretaries and moderators. And I invite you for join us tomorrow again. We will have many interesting activities. I invite you 10 p.m. for the 80 maps. Jordana probably put in the chat, Zoom info. If you would like to know how can be the dialogue between maps and the communities, we have a very interesting session, 10:30, with a group of San Francisco and a group in Sao Paulo, an organization that works with the maps of the inequalities. We will have more sessions with papers, book chats, and thank you again.